right, welcome back. Aaron Morin here again to discuss Temple. In 0.5, Temple is not the same. Why should you run it? I think it is an excellent strategy. Here we have a tier list, says it's B tier. Low investment, low reward. What's the point? All right, so let's check out Temple and see why I think this is a great opportunity for you to spend your time dealing with, all the various mechanics in a way that, you're not going to be wasting your time. So hopping right into what Temple is, how it works, and where to focus your time. Obviously, since we don't have the same mechanic that we had in the last league, we want to focus on the Exile rush strategy. And the reason for that is the most simplest, straightforward, easily accessible, right? So we farm up our crystals. Let's say we get 60 charges, just kind of flat out base. You get a temple tablet. You go hit the little, crystals to get yourself 66 energized crystals to run the temple. You can do this 10 times in a back-to-back-to-back manner. And the ideal is that you do 5 queen runs, right? So you set up the royal access chamber. This is a scuffed map, by the way, but let's, for the conversation's sake, we do our royal access chamber, we do the queen, right? Then all of this goes away, we reset, we have our central line that's kind of protected by these side paths, and then we run the architect, get another access chamber, and then we do it again, right? So we can do, a setup and a queen, a setup and a queen, 5 times each, 5 setups, 5 queen kills. So, and that'll, basically pretty much get us, straight to, zero us out, and then we can repeat. So what are the basics of running this? Well, the basics are some rooms connect to each other. So commander's chamber will connect to a barracks, but it won't connect to, other rooms, right? We can see these guys didn't connect even though they're right next to each other, but these guys did. We can see, hey, we've got a lot of rooms. We've got a lot of, other aspects of, medallions here, architect rooms here, and then the way that these connect and upgrade to each other. What do you want to focus on? You want to focus on these guys. You want to focus on the smithy, the armory, whatever you want to call it. It's the guy that's, pounding on an anvil and, yells at you. This increases the rarity of items found in chests. And when we do it at Zero Rush, we are getting a bunch of chests in the Queen's room. And we want to upgrade the loot that's in those. So we want to get as many of these and upgrade them as much as possible. Now, what's the best way to do that? If you have the opportunity, you want to have as many as possible, right? So if you were like, geez, I don't know what to do. I've got a couple of these rooms available to me, but I could upgrade them, and I'm not sure what's the best way to go about it. Individually, these are better than if you had the upgraded version. You want to set it up so that you can have, for example, a pattern like this. You want to be able to maximize the amount of item rarity for your chests in this strategy. So what's the next best thing? It's basically upgrading the other rooms along your way to the queen. You always want to prioritize the queen and getting there, but if you have the opportunity to get other stuff along the way, so tying into our chest strategy, we have these architect specific rooms. They're on the fringes. You can place them around kind of the edges away from where your paths are, so you kind of have to path towards them, but they do contain more chests. And obviously if we're upgrading the loot in those chests, or the rarity rather, we can get more out of these. And these guys are going to give you some good currency, right? Some valuable a couple chaos worth, but it's still worth your time. These guys, in my opinion, the lineage supports and the runes are a complete waste of time. Do not bother with them at all. If you have to place them, but it's really not that big of a deal. This is worth some currency. Take out the orb from this room, and this is always fun. If you get like a Calandra's Touch or something valuable, I would say, hey, place this room, but really want to focus on these 3 guys here. And if you have to, place that one, and if you absolutely have to, place these or the other rooms. And on that note, the other rooms will include, if you path this tree, adds terraforming, so they can add a room that makes the area a swamp or a mountain or a water biome, right? So then these Atlas points, these Atlas tree points then apply to the temple. You always want to do temple currency in here. You can, I would say, if you're interested, do it at Zero Unique. That's always fun, but temple currency is really your money maker. And then obviously the rest of the tree. If you don't want to do this, you don't want to have that in your pool, you can not tech this. That is a strategy, and you're going to be just fine without these things being, selected. From there, the basic understanding is you make a central path to the queen, you branch off to get the architect every time or as often as possible, and the royal access chamber. We've got the barracks, and they connect to a few of the other rooms here, and they get upgraded. We've got these guys that kind of get connected and upgraded to here. The real moneymaker of the rooms, the basic rooms, is going to be this room here. This can give you some pretty good currency. These guys are not going to give you some currency. That's really kind of why they're really kind of low down the list. If you can find it, upgrade these rooms. And that's the thing too, you're not always going to get these rooms, right? But when you do, it is worthwhile to try and upgrade them. To if you have the opportunity to, you know, use an upgrade medallion and upgrade them, or to keep them around from being destabilized. This allows an extra room. This gives some more modifiers for the map. All of these medallions are great. If you have an extra room medallion that's like, hey, it's a medallion that gives you an extra one of these, that's okay. Not the end of the world. It is kind of handy if you need a path somewhere. But if you're at your limit on medallions, because you can only have 6, then, you know, take the time, think about what you want to do with your strategy, and do what's best for that specific setup, because it is always going to be different. This one as well can drop some good currency, unique currency, and interestingly enough, this one can drop soul cores. Didn't used to do that. Now it does. Don't know how long that's going to stay around, or, you know, whatever and whatnot, but things always change. Shadow updates, nerfs, buffs, bans, all that jazz for content. You know, they're like, Recombinator, you're gone, and we'll see you maybe later or not. So, you know, a lot of this content is here now in the way that it is, and it may not stay that way, but for right now, these are some good options. Interesting point of note, though, this guy right here doesn't really connect to anything, so you can't use him as kind of like a pathing, and if you're pathing tiles, you know, your hallways, excuse me, aren't working or aren't connecting, then you can have some problems with this setup. For example, I had this path here, and I had paths that were like, you know, the hallway extended this way, and it was in the right orientation, and it just wouldn't let me place it there. So sometimes you are going to have to place these rooms to kind of get to where you want to go. And as you can see, this sealed vault just does not connect to anything. The generator upgrades the power of some rooms, and the tier rather, and it is able to connect, but it does have some unique properties as well. There's a bunch of exceptions. There's a bunch of rules. I just want to point out the real basics and give you guys an understanding of why this is worth running. So you can get, obviously, the currency. These guys aren't worth that much. These guys aren't worth that much, but these guys are worth your time to get. They are worth running for these currencies. And I want to add an extra point on top of this. If you run this, you don't have to buy these currencies, right? So if you want to do crafting, or you want to do something, you know, with these currencies, it is expensive to buy. If you run this content while you're running your S tier strategies, or you're doing, you know, whatever you want to do with the game, and you run this on the back end and you're like, hey, I want to switch things up, suddenly there's a lot of value that you can generate here straight off the currency exchange. But also there's a lot of opportunity costs where suddenly you're not having to buy this stuff because you're always, or you're able to run it. On the alternative side of things, there are also the items. These guys can be worth something, you know, more or less depending on what you identify, and you could just sell it as is. And same thing with these guys. These are the kind of the uniques that I was talking about, you know, running on the Atlas tree. So there's more. There's that series communion. That's a lineage support gem that drops here. It's, you know, big divs. It's not huge. It went down a lot, but there's a lot of opportunity there as well. If you want to, you know, fund a project or do, you know, your S tier strategy, and you need 40 divs a tablet, this is an opportunity to get your currency, or at least kind of, you know, fund a little bit more of your gear or your fund money, whatever you want to do. Crafting, gambling, basically the same thing. So Atziri's Temple, great strategy, great opportunity. Highly recommend the Atziri Boss Rush. This is a fantastic strategy, especially because you can splice it into a lot of your general mapping. Say you're looking for lineage support, say you're looking for city zones to set up 200% delirium, you can run Vaal tablets, get your charges, get your setup ready to go, and then swap back, do a temple run, then swap back to your 200% delirium, and you can get your currency and your S tier strategy all in one bundle. You know, you run your main strategy as much as you can, but you can't always do that. And when you can't do that, it makes sense to do something that is working towards, not the best, but a good strategy all around. So the temple run is very simple, very straightforward. There's some nuance, there's some exceptions, but there's also a lot of really great opportunities. The limbs you can get from the surgeon. Looks like this guy needs to be 3 or 4. And that's the other thing too. All these other rooms here, these guys need to be 3 or 4 to get the corrupted currency. But if you get this guy to 3 or 4 by upgrading him through, you know, your upgrades or your connecting rooms, this guy, as well as I think the generator as well, you can have an opportunity to add limbs to your character. So increase your deflection chance, increase your evasion if you're an evasion build, or get more sprint speed, or reduce the movement penalty while casting an ability. There's some really handy upgrades that you can do. And when you do get this room to 3 or 4 and you get there and you get onto the table, you can cycle through the upgrades. You can say, hey, I don't see anything that I like. I'm gonna hop out of this thing and try again. Very handy, very easy. This isn't hard content, relatively speaking. For some of the strategies you're going to be running, this is pretty, you know, it's a very low bar to entry, and if you want to run this, you can do quite well. Now, the recommended conversation for, you know, the guide from, you know, the you know, for everything from max roll to YouTube, you know, created by this creator here, it recommends this is for crystal farming. Don't be misled. This is to get the crystals, and you're recommended to get these very expensive tablets to do this as often as possible, to kind of just solely focus on this. It's not what I'm recommending you do. I recommend you do this while doing something else, right? So this says to pair it with liquid emotion farming. I say, hey, you got your S tier strategy, pair it with this. And then if you got this strategy, pair it with liquid farming, right? So you could do 2 to 3 things at a time. And the basic point that I want to make for what we're looking at here is, number 1, you don't need these tablets. Get a straight up basic temple tablet, because what you want to do is you want to path to your S tier content areas. You don't want to do the map node as quickly as possible to get as many charges as quickly as possible, because you're trying to complete maps, right? So you're trying to run through as many maps as possible to get as much area of the world exposed as possible to then do your S tier content. So you don't want your additional chance to gain an additional crystal, because this then incentivizes you to do fewer maps because you're getting more charges, so you could do more temple runs. Not what I'm recommending. I'm recommending just basic tablets, nice and cheap, run through the content, get your Vaal charges while you're doing your setup for your S tier stuff. And in that note, the Jado is, for that, the best, as we see here. However, when you're running the temple, that Jado is not going to help you as much as this Jado. So we get our linear support gems, fantastic. We get our exceptional items, fantastic. We get random content, because there's really nothing better else on the tree, and we get unique monsters have 1% chance to drop a cryptic key. There are going to be some unique monsters in certain setups. As you run through the temple over time, you're going to get a random unique monster that's going to generate based on the tier of a room that gives you a random unique monster. It's just going to happen. So this is why we do this. The rest of these are not going to be useful, and this is the best chance to get a good at zero communion drop. So you gotta run Jado. There's really no other option. And while we're running Jado, these are the best selections for actually running the temple, right? On top of that, the rest of the Atlas tree setup here, it's well described in this note here. And as you know, notice the difficulty in the investment, it's not crazy. It's very simple, very straightforward. So that's the recommendation for the temple. That's why I have it as a much higher rating, in my opinion. If I were to do a tier list, for example, than B, but this is solely based on the yield, right? Not the investment or the difficulty. So these tiers are set up for, hey, if you have infinite divs and you have infinite time, what's the best strategy? Okay, cool. It's these guys, right? But let's say you don't have infinite currency and you don't have infinite time. What can you do with the time that you do have and the currency that you do have that will be worth your time? And that is why I think Temple, it's great content to run. For your time and your effort and your energy and whatever build you're running, it can probably do this. So anyway, that's the Temple. If you have any more questions, please let me know. I'd love to add more context, explain more. Hit me up, comments, like, dislike, subscribe, and thank you. Aramorian.